Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. My name is Charles Bugie, also known as Sir Charles the Eclectic Geek. I'm a senior DevOps engineer for Tomata, an industrial IoT company. We specialize in the telematics industry out of Naperville, Illinois. I also run the IT Crowd, a group also out of Naperville on Meetup, where we meet every month to talk about different IT technologies and whatnot. We have everyone ranging from hobbyists to professionals. We meet the first Saturday of every month at 9 a.m. Central Time. So if you'd like to join us, look for us on Meetup. The group's free. Everyone is more than welcome to join us. We talk about anything and everything under the sun. So if you'd like to join us for some fun technical conversations, please feel free. But most importantly, I'm a very multifaceted geek, hence the eclectic in my name. And I talk about everything from Legos to books to technology to movies to TV to anything. As you can see from my Legos behind me here, I'm a very big fan of that. And if you're looking at my stream here, you can see I've already done a couple of Lego streams as well. Now, this video is going to be the first in a series of videos centering around open source tools. Obviously, open source technology is something that's very prevalent in the IT industry right now. There's lots of different technologies out there. This video series itself is going to be starting around Nagios. Nagios is an open source monitoring tool that I've been using for probably 8-10 years now, somewhere in that neighborhood. It is a fantastic free tool, hence the open source, that is great at monitoring servers, switches, printers, services, pretty much anything under the sun that you need to go ahead and keep an eye on. And being open source and free, it's a great foot in the door to go ahead and make sure you can keep everything running. And then also, if something does stop running, you get notified in basically a near real-time status. You can define that, you can control that. And I'm also not saying that this is the perfect solution for every company out there, but this is what works for us. Now, what we're going to be concentrating on today is the open source version of Nagios. There is a commercial product out there. I'm not knocking the commercial product. It's a very solid product. They have a great support system. They have a great product. We're just going to be concentrating on the open source solution right now. So with the we in mind, I would like to introduce you here to my friend Laura Penhallow. Laura is a I'm sorry, Laura. Laura is a cybersecurity specialist in the financial field based out of the UK, but originally a Chicago girl, much like I'm a Chicago guy myself. And Laura, go ahead and say a few things about yourself.
Hi, Charles. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on your video here. It's a tough act to follow because I think I'm nowhere near as interesting as you. But I have been in the IT field for probably close to 20 years now. Most of it has been in security, but I'm a Jill of many trades. So I have a lot of experience in finance and telecom, and I come from lots of environments where our budget was nothing. So that's actually where my experience with Nagios comes from, because it's open source. Because we could have anything we wanted as long as it didn't cost anything. I guess I'm a little bit of a geek, but nowhere to the Lego scale that you are. I do like a Lego. I like video games and Marvel movies. I mean, that's like it's about as interesting as I get. But I digress. I'll go back to Nagios. And here's that Nagios. So that's the first thing when Charles and I started to work on this, is like potato thing. I don't think there is a right way to say it. I mean, I think everybody's just, that's what I remember it being said to me as, so I've just latched down to it. But there's no wrong way to pronounce it. There's no wrong way to use it. It's open source. You do what you want.
I've seen many presentations on it in the past where the same presenter has gone from Nagios to Nagios in the same sentence. So, again, potato, who cares?
Yeah, well, yeah. You like later in the UK, you hear how many people pronounce things that, like, you're like, that's not how you say that, but it is. Maybe it is here. So yeah, and I'll flip flop in a sentence for some other words too. You'll probably hear it.
Exactly. Yep. So now in upcoming videos, Laura and I are going to be going and delving into the whole Nagios infrastructure. We will actually be setting up an entire server. We'll be setting up a number of client servers to attach to the Nagios server to do the monitoring. We'll be showing you how to go ahead and do the basic server setups, the basic client setups, how the agents get configured both under Windows and under Linux operating systems. We'll show advanced customizations as well with regards to how you can actually write your own custom plugins. I've done many of them over the years, and it's really a lot easier than you would expect. When I first started doing it, I was very intimidated by it, but it's really not that difficult. As we're going through this, as we actually publish these different videos, if anyone does have any requests, please go ahead and feel free to comment on the videos. I'll be doing my best to either reply or respond to them with future videos. Or please feel free to email me directly at questions@eclecticgeek.guru. Any suggestions, again, we have, please feel free. I'll be mentioning that again at the end of this video. But again, please feel free to throw any ideas our way. We're always looking for more input. Now, Laura, you started working with Nagios before it was Nagios. What's the story there?
Yeah, so I started working with Nagios when it was still called NetSaint. And I can't remember the exact year, but I was working at a telecom based out of Kansas City that was in good shape. This is right as the bubble burst, so we were in good shape-ish, I guess, but really tight budget. And so we really needed something to go monitor our internal service, and also we ran an ISP, so we need to have monitoring for that. And again, we could have anything we wanted as long as our budget was nothing. So one of the guys on my team, I was sitting on the Unix team at the time. He found this. I don't know how we found it, but he found it, and he's like, "Look, guys, this is super easy to set up." And we kind of looked at the docs. We're like, "Yeah, all right. What's it called?" We're like, "NetSaint." We're like, and I can still think of the logo. So it had to have been like maybe 2002, 2003. So it was pretty early on. But anyway, so like what we deployed it really quick. It's a lot of Perl, which is just something that we were using a lot of at the time. So it really actually wasn't that hard to go import modules and just make it do what we wanted to. But honestly, it's one of those products that just really does what it says on the tin. It says like you can monitor a Windows server, so that's what we were doing. We're monitoring for service up downs and like file system full and and general things that you care about with servers. We're doing the same thing with Linux, FreeBSD. We had some Solaris boxes at the time. It pretty much, if you could put this client on it, you could monitor it, and it was doing what it said it was going to do. But full disclosure, I haven't actually been with Nagios or NetSaint in some time, so my memories are of it. But it sounds like it's still doing the same thing, but it's just continuously been better and improved over time. But at the core of its being, how the genesis of it, it just looks like it's only gotten better.
Yeah, which I can easily attest to myself. I got thrown into Nagios, again, 8-10 years ago. I don't really remember exactly when. One of the guys in my IT department at my previous job, he was the Nagios guy. He had brought it in, set it up, and then he left the department to go elsewhere. I ended up inheriting it. As I'm starting to work with it, it took me a while to kind of get my feet under myself. Once I started playing with it, I'm like, oh, it can do this. Oh, it can do, oh, hello. You can do, oh. As I started going down quite literally the rabbit hole of Nagios, I realized all of the different functionality it had, and this is a free piece of software, and it can do these 412 different things. To say the least, I'm quite impressed.
If you can put in, if you can get to it like via UNC path or a port or SNMP, it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, there's a lot of ways to slice and dice, and it just works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things we were kind of doing some research on when we were putting this information together is Laura was able to find, one of the questions I had was, where in the world did the name Nagios come from? And Laura actually found it that Nagios is actually an acronym. Do you have that there, Laura? Or?
Oh, yeah. Nagios ain't gonna insist on sainthood. That's what Nagios stands for.
So when they got rid of the NetSaint name, they came up with that. So
yeah, I don't think we did find why they went from NetSaint into Nagios, which is maybe that was just to set themselves apart. Because I guess if you have a unique name, maybe you stick out a little more.
Rebranding, or who knows? But
yeah.
But from the looks of it, from what we could tell, NetSaint itself started around March of 2002. So basically with 2 decades behind itself, we couldn't really find any definite numbers as far as like an install base or anything. Just presuming it's got to be at least in the tens, if not by now into the hundreds of thousands of installs. Just doing a quick Google search, I could tell that it looks like the companies, there have been numerous very large organizations out there, including my own, that are using it. Just to be safe, I don't want to actually name names so we don't run any kind of risk of lawsuits or anything, but I can say for sure Tomato is using Nagios and absolutely loves it. To say the least, it has saved our bacon numerous times. I mean, granted, I'm obviously never thrilled to get the 2 a.m. text messages that such and such server is not available anymore, but to get that 2 a.m. text, get out there, fix the server in 5, 10, 15 minutes, and only have that much of an outage instead of being down for 4, 5, 6 hours, coming into the office the next morning and reacting
having your VP tell you, like, hey, the server's been down for 6 hours. Yeah, you never want to have somebody tell you that. Or more
accurately, have 100 customers calling up saying, hey, why can't I get at the system? Yeah, much better option having it that way. Yeah. But yeah, Nagios can do notifications via email, via SMS, pretty much any system you would like. They can do webhook tie-ins, you name it, it can do it. Now, one of the other things that's very interesting about Nagios is because it is open source. One thing that a lot of people have not realized, and we were having a conversation just the other day, Laura didn't realize she'd actually been using a fork of Nagios and wasn't even aware. You want to tell that story, Laura?
Yeah, so we were looking at just like the different, the forks that were available, and one of them is Isinga, which we were using until just a couple of years ago in my company for just like kind of ping-based monitoring. And we moved away, and I don't really actually remember why, but we moved away to another product, but it wasn't because Isinga wasn't doing the job. It was just a really simple, like, ping, host up, post down sort of thing that we're using. But yeah, that has roots in Nagios. And there's some couple other ones, nconf, checkmk, shrinkin. So really, if you've heard of any of these different forks, it might be that you know more about Nagios than you think. If you're coming to this video never having, thinking, I don't know anything about this and I want to know more. And the other thing I was going to mention with the notifications, there's been a lot of people, because it's open source, they've lent their talents, as it were, to go write webhooks that can display like nice dashboards or can do some chat ops and things like that. That's all free that you can just kind of bolt on to your Nagios. Obviously, your mileage may vary for what you're using it, but just to know that other people are like, hey, this is super useful. I built this for my organization. You can have it too. That's all free. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The extensibility of Nagios is amazing. You can write whatever you want for it, and you can basically write in whatever language you want too. Their ability to write plugins for Nagios for doing the different monitoring of the different operating systems, it is quite literally pick the language of your choice. Laura was mentioning earlier that she was using NetSaint with Perl back in the day. If Perl is your language of choice, keep using Perl. I personally have written plugins using Bash, PowerShell, PHP, DOS command prompt, just regular batch files. I think that covers pretty much everything, but anything that in either Linux that can be handled by the command prompt by a shell processor, or anything that can be run at a command line in Windows can be used as a plugin language. So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if your operating system can interpret it, you can write in it.
Exactly.
I don't think that, that's also like to find something that's that flexible.
Yeah. Yeah, it all comes down to the exit or the return codes that you get from the end of the execution of the plugin. And we're going to get more into that when we actually cover plugins in one of the later videos. But that's, in the end, how simple Nagios is. They keep it very, very quick and easy. But from that, you can do quite simply vary so much. I know that was very bad English, and I apologize for that. But it's really how simple it's down to. Now, one of the things that people are... Sorry?
I was going to say, like, just kind of quick, like because we're talking about like how easy and how... Maybe I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but like, how long do you think it took you to set up your last Nagios server?
Well, due to the point that I'd actually been setting those for so long, getting my last Nagios server up and running, maybe 20 minutes.
So even if I haven't used it in, dear Lord, almost 20 years, I could probably just like, oh yeah, and just like kind of just to say like it's so extensible, and then it's also not mega complicated. It's not a massive install. It's just use this, and then obviously your configuration can take as long as you like, depending on your environment. Right. But it's just kind of
yeah. To get basic functionality up and going, you're probably talking 20 minutes to a half an hour. The only catches are there's a couple of things you need to remember as far as where certain passwords go in certain files, the structure of the actual configuration files, the directory structure behind them, because they are a little, my personal opinion, a little disorganized. But once you understand how the main Nagios configuration file is set up, you can rearrange the actual configuration files themselves to your own liking. Once you do that rearrangement, which I have my own personal way that I like to tweak it slightly, to me it's more logical. Other people may disagree. That's fine. You're open to your own interpretation, no problem. But once I do that little bit of tweaking, that little bit of rearranging, it makes my life so much easier. Then the adding of new servers, the adding of new services is just absolute child's play.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't really necessarily like about Nagios, but I've gotten used to because I'm become a very big Linux fan personally, is the main Nagios monitoring server itself does need to run on a Linux Unix type system. Nagios itself cannot run on a Windows box. So you do need to run the main monitoring system itself on some sort of Enix-based server of some sort. So whether it's Debian, CentOS, whatever you'd like, it does have to run on one of those. Beyond that, the clients, on the other hand, the sky's the limit. I have yet to see basically anything that Nagios can't monitor in some way, shape, or form. If you want to be able to monitor a Windows box, a Mac, a Linux machine, no problem. You've got agents for that. You want to be able to monitor a switch, a printer, fantastic. You want to just be able to ping it to make sure it's there, we got you covered. You want to be able to actually dive into the switch to get greater detail, hey, we got SNMP, as Laura was mentioning earlier in the video. As long as you can actually get to the SNMP information and actually understand what the SNMP tree, is that the proper term for SNMP?
Yeah, I'd call it a tree still, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as long as you understand
the tree, because it's laid out like that, yeah.
Okay. I'm not as familiar with an SNMP, what the actual proper terminology is. Yeah. But as long as you can understand and navigate the actual SNMP tree hierarchy of it, you can actually go ahead and pull that information out. Nagios can read that information and pull that in and display that for you as well, and you're good to go. So Nagios can handle all of that for you, no problem. So there really isn't anything yet that I've been able to find that Nagios can't handle.
So with regard to the server setup, because we don't want to put people off to not use it. Like if you're more Windows focused, what do you think at the level of knowledge someone should have at a very base to be able to use this? Is it easy to kind of figure out how to install it on a Linux-based server? Like I know you and I are really comfortable with Linux-based systems, but just let's say I told you my husband's he's not comfortable. So if I gave this to him and said, you should do this, how difficult do you think it would be for somebody who's...
The good news is if you can even basically navigate Linux, you'd have no problem. When we do the actual... Now, there's a couple of different ways that you could install Linux, and the next video, we're going to delve into the different options in detail. Option 1, if you want to, you can download the actual raw code of Nagios from GitHub and compile it yourself. Now, normally, if you're going to do something like that, you're going to be the type of person who's actually probably going to go into the code and tweak the raw code itself for your company. Inject your logo, change the name, start building your own fork, possibly. Okay, right. That's perfectly fine if that's the kind of thing you'd like to do. That's option 1. Option 2 is, if you're more of a very basic Linux user, you can do the entire installation of Nagios using either a yum, a DNF, an apt-get command. That's it.
Nice.
One command to install Nagios, one command to install the plugins, or you can even do one command to do both of them if you'd like. And once that's done, one command to install them, a sysctl to start up the Nagios server, and you're done. That's it. After that, it's just configuration files.
And the documentation, I thought, from what I've seen, just kind of reacquainting myself with this, is really good. There's videos and there's stuff off the main site that, yeah, so like I guess so it sounds like just to install it, you don't have to have years of Linux admin underneath your belt. You can just experiment with it. And I mean, I think that the requirements to run this Nix server are really low too, right? Well, not super, super low, but like you don't have to have a monster server. I think you run yours on a VM, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so if you wanted to have a play with this, you could just probably just, spin up a VM on your workstation and just see how you go.
Yeah. You want to mess around with Nagios and whatnot, you could do this entire thing under VirtualBox on your laptop and play around with it. Create a couple of VMs, one for the Nagios and two other VMs for an Apache box and a MySQL box, and you can completely play around with Nagios and not even have to worry about any kind of a production environment.
Nice.
Excuse me. Myself personally, I do all of my Nagios systems as VMs. I would actually say I've actually never built a physical Nagios box. There's never been a need for it. My Nagios servers have never had more than 4 CPUs and 8 gig of RAM, and that was just because I just happened to throw that at them. They probably very easily could get away with 2 CPUs and 4 gig of RAM. I just had the resources, so I threw it at them.
Yeah.
50 gig of storage, again, way high. The only reason I've actually even increased that in the past is I've also recently been working with playing around with Nagios and trying to store more historical data on them. And that's one thing I do want to actually talk about in one of our later videos, actually, is Nagios being short-term storage of data versus long-term storage of data. So we'll be going into that in a later video as well. But as far as the actual configuration and the setup and then the actual configuration, you're talking half a dozen commands in Linux and you're up and running.
Nice.
Yeah, it is actually quite simple. But again, if you want to do the compilation from code, yes, there's a lot more involved. But doing a straight install of Linux, as long as you've got some basic command knowledge, it's very easy, really. Yeah.
And you'll need root, almost certainly, because that'll write.
Oh, most definitely. You'll definitely need root access to the machine, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So
cool.
When we actually start working in the lab that I have set up for this, I have set up a couple of Windows domain controllers we'll be working off of. There's a Windows IIS server that will also have SQL Server installed on it as well. Again, just to have some resources to play with. In all of these cases, I've just grabbed the Microsoft Windows servers trial versions. So you have 180 days versions available. So this is available to everyone. So anyone who wants to build a lab just like this, you're free to go ahead and do so. The 180-day trials, the Microsoft server operating systems and whatnot, are relicensable up to 6 times. So this lab you build for yourself can be valid for 3 years before you have to destroy the entire thing. And this is 100% legitimate through Microsoft. Feel free to look it up yourself.
That's really good. I didn't know about that at all.
Oh yeah, this has been around forever. Yeah. If you need a lab at home for more than 3 years, then yes, you're going to have to rebuild the entire thing. I tend to rebuild my entire lab about every 9 months to year anyway, just because I need to completely refresh the entire thing because eventually there's just too much garbage on it. It tends to happen. But hence why it's a home lab. We're also going to have, as I mentioned earlier, I believe, an Apache server with MySQL on it. Again, just to have a couple of different Linux resources available on it. I might be adding a couple other servers into the mix just for a little variety. I think I have an older Mac laptop around that I might be turning on and adding into the system as well. The actual physical Mac, but I don't know if that, to be perfectly frank, I don't know if that machine even still works anymore, but we'll see. Now, the other thing that I like to do when I'm building my labs is, and this is the other reason why I tend to rebuild my entire lab every couple of years, I like to base my labs off of like a TV show or a movie series that I'm watching at a given time. So in the past, I've built it off of the TV show Eureka. Right now, my lab is based off of the TV series Stargate. So one of my current favorite shows.
Who doesn't love Stargate? Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Sam and Jack forever. No question.
Yeah.
And I love throwing anytime I can throw a Teal'c indeed into a conversation, I love doing that as well.
Yeah. Oh.
To go geek for a minute there, I love hearing the geek arguments between people that are like, Trek or Wars? Like, okay, Star Trek versus Star Wars, that old argument. Anytime anyone ever asks me that, they're like, Trek or Wars? I look them dead in the eye and go, Gate. They look so mortally offended. I ended up laughing my butt off. I just like, hey, it's better than both of them in my opinion. But there's nothing wrong with liking them all. They're all very good in their own right.
It depends which Star Trek and depends which Star Wars. I mean, if I'm honest, and that could start more fights than anything. You know, prequels or, sequels for Wars, and then, which Star Trek. I mean, like, does Deep Space Nine count? I mean, Stargate, the whole lot of it is good. I was like, they just don't make shows like that anymore, which is really sad, because that was like, I remember like running home to like put the program to VCR to tape that with
oh yeah.
I mean, back before it was cool. But it's one of the greatest shows on there. And like, but it's also one of those I don't want them to remake because they'll ruin it. I think in the age of the remakes, I just leave it there in my memories, and I can watch it when I want to.
The current rumor going is Brad Wright is close to not restarting, but recontinuing the series. As in getting it going again to continue it.
Okay, I would be all right with that, because then you're just taking another chapter with another team, and that's okay. I mean, as long as they stay with. But if they try to like reboot it, like it just annoys me to no end with all the reboots. And like comic book movies are the same way. Like, this is a reboot. You're just like, what was wrong with it? Oh, so those are some of the arguments that happen in my house. But
oh yeah. And you and I would probably just have to have a separate video where we just simply talk movies and whatnot in general. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm already planning that one out in my head, actually.
Yeah. After we get the Nagios stuff done.
Exactly, yeah. Which is going to be probably 14 videos at this rate already, so yeah. But anyway, so what I've done is my domain controllers are Stargate Command, the way I have it set up. The IIS server, I'm calling it Atlantis. And the Apache server, I believe I'm calling it the Beta Site.
Oh, okay, yeah, very.
So
very
again,
nice,
I figured if I'm going to do this, may as well have some fun with it. I've got Sam Carter set up as the main Windows admin. I've got Zelenka set up in Atlantis. Again, I've got to have some fun with this.
Yeah.
May as well take some of my favorite characters.
Yeah, especially if it's a home lab, it's no problem. I mean, even if it was like Tomato's lab, I mean, completely. I mean, like, I would understand it. I worked at a bank, I think I told you this, where all of our servers were, our main client app server was, she was Snow White, and all her app servers were the dwarves, which made Patch Weekend super fun. Like, rebooting Grumpy, and Happy hasn't come up yet. When those are all done, Snow White can go get rebooted. Yeah, just conversations you don't want to have with your colleagues. I mean, I think Stargate would be much cooler.
What do you know? We're waiting on Dopey again. Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, you're like, yeah, Dopey just, gosh, then you have to reboot that one 2 times. So, yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, my use of Stargate, MGM, Universal, whoever owns you guys, I'm just using you guys as purely as a tribute, as honorary, big fan.
Super fan.
Please don't sue. Love you guys. Love the material. big fan here. So just letting you know. All right. So now moving forward, the number of topics that we have planned for these future videos is pretty extensive. A lot of these topics will get kind of combined into the same video. Some of them will be dedicated to their own video, depending on how extensive they get. As I mentioned, our first video after this one is going to be the actual setting up of an actual Nagios server. We'll do it both ways. We'll do it from the actual compilation of code, which will be much more involved. It'll be a lot more commands. A lot of people will probably just skip right past that section of the video. No problem. I totally understand that. And then we'll go ahead and do an actual installation from the actual repositories, which will be absolute child's play. In fact, actually, I need to remember to do this. Once we're done, I'll see about putting together either a GitHub repository or a link somewhere with just the actual list of commands, so everyone has that right handy at one place. So after that, either in conjunction with that video or as a secondary video to that, we'll then do Nagios client installations under Linux. And then for Windows, there's no direct Nagios client for Windows. For Windows, what we're going to be using is something called NS Client Plus, which is another open source tool. An open source client for use of Nagios with Windows. NS Client Plus can be used with other monitoring tools, OBS 5 or something, I want to say. I haven't used that monitoring tool, but I think that's one of the ones that NS Client Plus works with as well. Does that ring a bell for you, Laura?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I have to go read about it again, but yeah, that sounds about right. And I mean, and it's not like they just wrote it last week either. That's been around for a long, long time. They just keep making it better.
Right, because I remember seeing that mentioned during the NS Client Plus install. I just don't use it myself.
Right.
On the NS Client Plus, I've also used it enough that I actually have a MS Client command line to do a whole quiet install too. So you can actually just do all of the installation parameters in one quiet command line if that's the kind of thing you want to build into a silent installer. So I've got that available as well. So after you do that, we'll go into, and actually in conjunction with that video, we'll go into the actual server configurations in the actual configuration files. So how you actually would build that. Immediately with that one, I'm also going to go into one of the things that I like to do as far as how I actually do the reconfiguration and the rearrangement of the configuration files on the server itself. So we'll first go into the nagios.config file. I'll show you where all the different directories are, where the config file includes, and the config directories are included, how I tweak it personally for my preferences, the ones that I add, the ones that I modify, etc. And then we'll go into the actual building of the actual server configuration files and why I do what I do and the tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years, why I've migrated from this to this, etc. We'll go into the actual server configuration. The Nagios configuration file. We'll deep dive into it, some of its configurations, how you can actually more fine tune how the individual servers themselves will respond. For example, the IIS box, we might not necessarily want to know if he's down until he's down for maybe half an hour, because he might do a reboot, he might take a little bit longer to come up. Okay, that's fine. If he's down for 10 minutes, I'm not worried. But if he's down for more than half an hour, okay, yeah, then I'd want to know. Domain controller, on the other hand, if he's down for 5 minutes, I want to know right away. Now, we don't want all the servers to have the same configuration, so we'll go into the configuration files and we'll show you how the differences, or where the differences are, how you can define server configuration 1 versus server configuration 2, basically custom server configurations, and how you can do that for servers, or, I'm sorry, I'm using the term server, I apologize. The Nagios term is actually hosts. So we'll do a host configuration, and then we'll do a service configuration as well.
When you say server, you mean the Nagios server itself, and then the host being.
Well, we'll look at the actual server configuration of the actual Nagios' configuration file, yes.
Right.
And then we'll also look at the hosts configurations as well. Yes, also, yeah.
It'd probably be good to show like how to change that stuff on the fly if you use it for like, hey, I'm working on this server and I'm going to work on it for 2 hours. Like how you can just kind of just throw that in there quick to, so it doesn't alert you in the village that it's down because you already know. that sort of thing,
Precisely.
like some other like
Exactly.
other
Yep.
tweaks you can do about that. Cool.
Exactly. Yep. And one of the other things that Nagios has built into it, which is a fantastic capability, pardon me, is they actually have a verification system. So once you make the modifications to all these configuration files, normally, as is probably a good habit to be in, you should only make 1 or 2 configuration changes at a time and then put it into effect. Sometimes, especially when you're building a server or building an environment for the first time, you're going to make 20, 30, 40 changes. Before you just restart the Nagios server, you want to verify the configuration. We'll show you how to do that. We'll show you how to read the error message if you make a mistake, how to go back
That's
in
really
and
good.
fix that, and how to actually trace down the actual error message that you received from the configuration verification. So you can go back and go, okay, well, this error means this, but if I backtrack this to here, to here, to here, there's the actual real error. So you understand how all that works. After that, then we'll have individual videos centering, or I should say grouped around, but centering around, like I said, the hosts and services. Within there, we actually have the ability to define contacts and contact groups. We can go ahead and define custom services. So obviously, for example, we'll go ahead and want to monitor IIS and the SQL Server, but let's say you write a custom application. Can I monitor that with Nagios? Sure. Absolutely can do that. We'll show you how to build that. Nagios itself has a number of variables built into the application. You can use those variables and carry those through to the actual applications that are being monitored. You can carry those through to the email notifications and the SMS notifications that you send out, so that instead of hard coding an email that goes out to say, my service.exe has crashed, you can say, service1 variable has crashed. So the email will go ahead and automatically update accordingly, so you don't have to go ahead and change it every single time or have 47 emails to find. Why do that? Make that work to yourself. Right.
Cool.
Another thing Nagios has that a lot of people don't know is Nagios has event handlers. So let's say, for example, IIS goes down. For whatever reason, your site just has a memory glitch, IIS locks and just w3p.exe, or whatever the executable is, it just crashes and just ends itself completely. Nagios goes, check 1, check 2, check 3. Okay, it's failed. I know it's failed. With an event handler, if you define one, you can have the event handler tell the IIS server restart. You can send a notification, say, this happened, IIS had to get restarted, but instead of actually just saying, hey, user, go to the IIS box and restart IIS, you can just have Nagios tell the IIS server to try to restart.
Right, because 9 times out of 10, that's what you're going to log into anyway. So
Exactly.
yeah, like have it just do it, not you having to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's like having extra staff.
If that can save the work for you, you're all set.
Right.
Now, on the flip side, if IIS is hung and the site's not responding, you might still have to have user interaction, or you're going to have to do a more complicated PowerShell script or something else, but you can then write that more complicated PowerShell script, have it be the event handler for you, write that intelligence into the system for you. We'll go into how to write an event handler, how to code it in through the system, how to actually have the email get sent to you so you know that has occurred, so you can go ahead and backtrack it later, debug the problem, figure out what happened. And then, in conjunction with that, we're going to the actual custom scripts that we have available, also saying, hey, here's how you write a custom script, custom event handler, etc. One of the other things we'll talk about is high availability. What do you do if Nagios goes down? Well, one of the simplest things you can think about is, hey, have a second Nagios environment. Have Nagios A monitor Nagios B. split everything between the two, have both Nagios environments monitor everything, have one Nagios A monitor at a 5-minute basis and B at a 10-minute basis, or have Nagios A realize that if Nagios B goes down, you have Nagios A swap to B, or there's all sorts of different ways that you can go with that. It's a discussion that we're going ahead and have that's open-ended, but there's all kinds of conversations we can have around that. Again, because this is open source, licensing isn't a factor, and these servers are very, very lightweight. You can do whatever you want here.
Yeah, it doesn't cost extra. I mean, like, it might even be just as simple in your environment that you just make sure that you've got snapshots every night. So if for some reason that server crashes, whatever, something happens, if you've got those snapshots where you can just reload it, or if you've got Veeam or something else in your environment where you can just go fetch yesterday's, then maybe you can just dump that on a new box. So yeah, there's many ways to skin that cat, aren't there?
Yeah. And then, because I'm going to be, in a way, kind of refreshing Laura to the world of Nagios here, as we're going along, I'm going to be asking her for suggestions, questions, input, and whatnot. Again, anyone who's watching any of these videos, if you have questions, commentary, whatnot, please feel free to make comments on the videos. Email me at questions@eclecticgeek.guru. Want to hear everyone's input. Be happy to get back to you either with a direct reply, or we'll integrate whatever your question is into one of the upcoming videos. Laura, what would you like to add to this?
What else there is to add to that, other than to, just second your comment that if there's something specific that you had some burning question about Nagios that you wanted to have, or something kind of like in the list of what Charles has gone over, like what we're going to continue on, like, oh, make sure you include this, or have you thought about that, or a different specific use case. Maybe we could set up a host with a custom app if you wanted to see that, they see that done live and how we monitor that. Or specific use questions about like how, because you're living this every day. And me, it's just kind of remember. So yeah, definitely reach out to us, because the more interactive it is, I think the more everybody gets out of it.
Definitely. Yeah. So
cool.
That's what we're looking at just for today, everyone. We'd like to thank everyone for watching the first video of the series. We're hoping to get at least a video up a week. We'll see how that goes, but as everyone well knows, life sometimes get in the way of these kinds of fun projects, unfortunately. But again, if anyone does have any suggestions, hit us up, let us know, and we look forward to seeing you soon. And have a great day. Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.